Vendure 1.6 is out now. Let's take a look at some of the things that are in this release. Make it work, make it right, make it fast. This is a quote attributed to Kent Beck, and it describes the sequence of concerns that you should address when building software. Of course, you want it to work, you want to make it handle all the edge cases, and you want to make it run fast. So where are we with Vendure? Well, it works. And over the past years, as a community, we've handled bugs, edge cases, and improved stability, so it works right. Now it's time to make it fast. But wait a minute, is Vendure slow? Well, no, it's not slow at all. In fact, it'll happily run on a $5 DigitalOcean Droplet. It doesn't need a lot of hardware to run quickly, and it doesn't need layers of caching or extreme server tuning to make it perform acceptably. But some users, especially those who are working on very large projects with tens or hundreds of thousands of products, customers, and orders, have reported certain queries running slowly. So in this release, I decided to deep dive into the topic of list query performance. First of all, I created an issue to summarize the current state of things and gather together the existing issues on the topic. I then created a set of benchmarks which we can use to measure the progress, because in performance work, it's all about measuring. And if you want to read the whole topic and the whole sequence of investigation and benchmarking, go and read the issue. It's linked in the release blog post. But the TLDR is that in Vendure 1.6, list queries should be faster by between 4 and 10 times, depending on the size of your data set. If you've got a huge store with like hundreds of thousands of items, then you might see an even greater performance improvement. Now, exactly how that was achieved is detailed in the blog post, but there's one aspect that I would like to show you in this video. How can we optimize list queries to make sure that we're only selecting the data that we really need for the query? Well, GraphQL makes that possible, and we've used a technique that's known as GraphQL lookaheads to examine the query and just select in the database that data, those relationships that are actually needed to provide back to the query. I'm going to illustrate this. Here we see the source code of the orders resolver. When you execute the orders query, this is what's returning the result. What's new in version 1.6 is this line right here. We've got a new decorator called relations, and this is going to provide us with a list of the required database relations which should be joined in order to service this query. We're logging it here so that we can have a visual cue as to what's actually going on when we run queries. Now let's take a look in action. So on the right hand side here, I've got a Vendure server running. On the left is a GraphQL client. I'm going to query for the orders list, and for each item, I just want the order ID. Let's run it. And here we see we've logged relations as an empty array. That means we don't need to join any relations for this query. This is going to be fast. Now if I want to know which customer has made the order, we can see the relations shows a single item, customer. We need to join the customer entity in the database. We can go further. If we want to know what groups that customer is part of, we can see the relations is filled out with customer groups as well. Finally, what if we want to know about the total quantity? When we send this query, something strange happens. It shows that we also need to join the order lines and the order line items. Now, why is this? Well, let's jump over to the order entity. And if we look at the total quantity property, we see that actually it's not stored in the database, it is a calculated property. We use this calculated decorator, which is part of Vendure. And in this decorator, we specify the relationship dependencies that are required to calculate this property. So the relations decorator is smart enough to look at these dependencies as well as the query itself in order to know exactly what relations need to be joined. The other main area we focused on in this release is collections. Let me show you what's new. I'll log in first. And you may have noticed this looks a bit better. Yeah, there's been a minor facelift to some of the screens here. Let's go over to collections. First of all, I previewed this in an earlier video, but I'll show you again that when you want to drill down into collections and edit one, before when you went back, the list would have been reset. Now, this state of what's expanded is stored here in the URL so that you can go backwards and forwards and keep that state. It works as well with filters. For those of you who have many collections, this should significantly speed up your working or the work of your administrators when they're dealing with collections. Okay, next, let's create a new collection. Now, as you know, collections are based on filters. Filters are basically a fancy way to define SQL queries, where clauses that allow you to specify which product variants should belong to that collection. We'll add a filter. Facet values, electronics. Now, something new you might notice right away is that as soon as I change the filter over here, in this panel, you see what the contents of that collection will be. Now, this is a live preview. This has not made any changes into the database. So if you don't press save or create in this case, nothing will change. It's working just in real time as a live preview. So let's add another filter here. We see we've got 9 results, and let's see, I want to make sure that the instant camera is included. I can just search for it here and just verify, yes, it's in the collection. This makes working with collections much easier. There's no more guesswork. Previously, you would have to save the collection, then go and manually check to see, does it contain the products that I wanted it to contain? So this was a cumbersome and absolutely not ideal workflow. So now it makes it a breeze. Secondly, let's add a new filter based on the product variant name. If it contains rope, well, there's nothing that comes under with these facet values and contains rope in the title. But there's something new here, combination mode. This allows us to set what's the logical operation to combine these filters. Previously, it was always an AND operation. It had to have these facet values and it had to have this string in the name. Now we can say it's an OR operation. So we've got the ones that match the facet value filter, and we've got the one right here, the skipping rope, that matches the product variant name filter. Changing that again, the live preview will show you whether you're getting it right. Thirdly, we have some new built-in filters. What if you want to just directly specify particular products or product variants to go in a collection? Before, you had to do that by creating a new facet value and applying it to those particular products or product variants. Now we can do it directly with one of these new filters. So I can manually select some products. Maybe there's some particular plants that I feel like should be in this collection. I can select these two and add them. And again, we can change the Boolean operator, which will add it to this collection. Here we go. The hanging plant and the aloe vera are in there. So all in all, this makes working with collections much more flexible and much faster. So there you have it, Vendure version 1.6. There are a lot more goodies, features, bug fixes. They're all detailed in the release blog post and the changelog, so check those out. Thanks for watching and see you next time.